So I wanted to talk about crossbar locks, and in this particular case, the SOG XR lock. So really nice lock, very fun to fidget with. It has a lot of fidget factor to it. It has probably, in my opinion, the most diverse way of getting the blade out. I had to bring this outside. I was having a hard time with the lighting inside, trying to show you how this XR lock actually works. So there's an actual retention spring here that probably hooks about here, and it comes down underneath of the actual scale and hooks into the actual crossbar, which is just a metal pin that rides across, and they have these nylon covers that sit on top of the pin and then have like a flat footing that sits underneath the scale. So it's a very different way that they are going about building this. Now the lock itself is going to be really hard to see, but it actually rides along the spine of the blade, and then what happens as you get closer to the inside of the knife, as you can see right in here where it's riding along, the C ends and the lock goes back into the blade itself. So it spirals around and then it recesses in, and that secures it to make sure that it doesn't open, and it has a little bit of resistance on the initial kick out. So if you watch the lock, as I start to push out, you see how it moves itself. Now it's actually sitting on the polished part of the blade and becomes very smooth in operation. So it's a very unique way that they've designed this knife. The other thing that I like, it's a one-piece unit. The Benchmade bug out that I have seen, it is a cutout that sits inside the scale, which is fine, but it's a two-piece, whereas this is a one-piece. The entire locking mechanism for the crossbar works on the actual liners. The other thing that I wanted to talk about too is the G10 scales are nice, but they're not as grippy as they are on some of the other knives that I have that have the G10. It's a little bit slick for my liking, but they're fine. As far as how it fits in hand, 2XL mechanic glove, mountain biking glove, yard work glove fits on there fine, no issues. The one complaint I have is because it is so slender, it does feel like I want a little bit more spine or width to bite down on, but it's fine. It's a little small as far as the knife goes, with a 2.95 inch blade and a slender profile. It's just a small knife. I really don't think it's going to be an issue unless you have big hands as well. It has a coated D2 steel that comes razor sharp from the factory. A lot of folks will say that they're tired of D2 and that D2 is hard to sharpen. I have not found that to be the case. I have broken down boxes, really thick boxes. I brought a lawnmower the other day because mine died, and I broke that entire box down, went inside and tested it on a sheet of paper, and it cut through that paper like it was just as sharp as it was out of the box. One other thing that I wanted to do with you today is to kind of give you a little bit of a visual aid and compare this knife to some other knives that I've had on the channel previously. So the first thing I wanted to start with in comparison is, of course, the ever popular Civivi Elementum, so that you guys can get a really good idea just how this knife compares as far as size. So as you can see, the two side by side are very close in size. It looks like there may be a little bit more handle on the Elementum, but the blade length are very similar, as both are sub 3-inch blades. The other knife that I wanted to bring in here to give a comparison that I've had on the channel before is, of course, the steel wheel cut jack. So as you can see, it compares very favorably to these two knives, being a sub 3-inch blade that still has a good fit in the handle. So just to give you guys a little bit more of a comparison, let me show them all to you closed up here. It looks like from here the Civivi and the Cut Jack have a little less grip, a little less handle to grip onto. And then another thing that I'll do as a comparison, which is a little harder to do with the clips, is you can kind of get a sense of the width. All very similar. Looks like the Cut Jack maybe have a little bit more. I don't know. The colors on the other two knives are throwing me off a little bit. So another knife that I wanted to kind of bring in here that I have had on the channel before that's a little bit bigger is the Spyderco Tenacious. And that's going to look a little bit odd because of the odd shape for the spider hole. But I wanted you to get a sense of the width with these knives. Now, the blade length on the Tenacious is going to be a little bit longer than it is on both these knives. So you can get a really good sense of where the SOG Terminus XR falls far as size goes. And lastly, I wanted to show you guys the companion carry items that I like to pair with the SOG Terminus XR. So I have my pocket organizer that I keep my Farmer X that I recently did a review on. Still loving the red A-lock scales on the Knife Center exclusive. Just a really, really beautiful color that just pops. I like to carry my almost matching red Fisher Space Pen. And with my Ravy Vaughn Aura A3 EDC pocket flashlight. That is everything that goes in the companion carry that I like to pair up with my SOG Terminus XR. And the pocket organizer that I use with it is just a very basic pocket organizer that I found on the cheap on Amazon to test out and see if I'm a pocket organizer kind of guy. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is it has a very deep carry tip up reversible pocket clip. Extremely deep. That's going to sit way down in the pocket. And it does have a bit of an in-your-face branding on the pocket clip, which I'm not a big fan of, but it's not enough to turn me off from the knife. They have other variants that are their lightweight variant, but you're talking premium steels, carbon fiber, and it's going to be around 140 bucks, which is the same price as the Bug Out. I think at that point I would just go with the Bug Out because it's a lighter knife. That's just my opinion. You may think differently. It also has a bit of a bigger blade, but it also has a slender profile, so just keep that in mind when you're considering this knife. Alright, so to summarize, I think that the Terminus XR is phenomenal value. I think it's a very fun, fidgetable knife to carry, and I love the fact that the crossbar lock gives you the opportunity to use this with either hand. It brings a certain level of safety because it keeps your fingers out of the blade path. It is drop shut until you hit the bottom of the C, and then when you release the XR lock, it actually puts the blade in place so that you don't have to worry about it falling out. Honestly, at $55, G10 scales, D2 steel, a crossbar lock, forget the thumb studs and the flipper, just the fact that it has the crossbar lock in itself at $55 is crazy. I love the fact that they coated the blade. That's just going to help with your rust prevention. I mean, it is a tool steel. I don't know exactly like where it falls as far as the rust factor goes. And then it gives you a deep pocket carry clip. At $55, you're not going to be able to beat everything that SOG is giving you with this knife. As far as the XR lock goes, I've had no issues with it. It did need a little bit of a break-in period, but everything that I've seen on other videos, that seems to be the case with any type of crossbar lock. It has a little bit of a break-in period. Once you break it in, it's really smooth, and I can attest to that. So I'll leave a link in the description below. If you enjoyed the content of the video, feel free to leave a like. If you want, totally up to you. If you'd like to hang out and come back and see other videos that I'm doing, subscribe. I do content periodically on pocket knife reviews, multi-tools, Swiss Army knives. I'm trying to do some mods to show you guys how you could personalize and customize your knife and make it your own. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Peace. I wanted to talk about I do contact period getting the blade out of the scales or out of the liner lock. So in my opinion, this has, I'm gonna start over. In my opinion, this has the most diverse way to deploy the blade.